Okay, so thank you for coming to our March Montessori Morning, which we are talking about the role of the teacher or sometimes just the adult in the child/student's life. Let me know if you have any questions because I cannot see the screen. So just, give me a verbal shout out if you have any questions, since we're a very intimate group today. All right.
Will
so
do.
excellent. What? Oh, thank you.
Will do. Will do.
Thank you. All right. So we have the explanation of the director or directress of the classroom. So typically, we don't refer to ourselves as teachers. Montessori liked the word director or directress because she thought that is what we were doing, right? We were directing the students so they could sort of self-learn. Instead of us teaching, we use our materials, as we say, to teach the children. So we are directing them towards the materials that we want them to use. So oftentimes you'll hear us say director or directress. We do still use the term teacher sometimes, so that can be a hard transition. The child cannot be taught to develop, right? That's a natural process. The child does this on his own. So again, we act as guides or directors to help that natural development. You don't teach them how to develop. That's just something to develop. That's just something that they do. So again, that's hence the word director or directress. We, as director or directress, we prepare the environment most importantly, but we also have to prepare ourselves. We consider it part of the classroom. Us as a human being being in that classroom, we are a part of that classroom. Oftentimes before I would welcome the students into my class, I would just take a good 5 minutes and do some breathing and sort of, prepare myself for the burst of energy that was going to be in my room for the next 6 hours. So the preparation of the director or directress, there's a spiritual preparation, there's a scientific preparation, and there's a professional preparation. Under spiritual, we have change, humility, patience, love, respect. Scientific, we have the observation process. We have theory and practice. And under professional, we have emotional stability, professional appearance, professional relationships with colleagues, and professional development with parents. So we're going to briefly go over these. So first we have spiritual preparation, right? Change. We need to be open to change. Children change at a rapid pace. Our classrooms are continually changing. The director needs to keep up. And this is where observing comes in. We are charged to observe in our classrooms every single day. It's very hard to do that when you have a room full of children. But Montessori was very clear that she wanted her teachers observing in their classroom every day. Ooh, I think hi, Nicole. Thanks for joining. Since it's
you figured out how to share your screen so you can see it all? Did you figure out how to share your screen so you can see it? Okay.
I'm fine.
Okay.
So Nicole, since it's such a small group, just shout out if you have questions or concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Sure. Thanks for coming. So again, we need to be open to change. With the observing process. Nicole, we are recording, just so you know. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so again, we're supposed to be observing so we can see the changes in our classroom, because again, there are changes every day. So we have to be open to change in our own growth. And is our decisions influenced by personal prejudices we have? If so, we need to be able to change to adjust to that. Also, there is the importance of humility, being aware of our limitations and knowing our strengths. Some of us are very good at classroom management. Some of us are very good at observing. Some of us are very good in the math area. Knowing your strengths and knowing your limitations helps you confer with your other professional peers when you know your limitations. And that's where humility comes in. We're not going to be strong at every single part of the classroom. So humility allows us to be open for change and not taking all the credit for a child's growth. Sometimes it can be hard to do. I taught the child to read. Yes, we helped the child to learn to read, and in a Montessori way, we exposed them or directed them, right? We have to put pride aside. Pride is opposite of humility, and it could be an obstacle to our work. So knowing there is no perfect environment and that the environment changes, that's part of humility as well. Knowing that we are going to have to make adjustments. There is no perfect classroom. Patience. Of course, we need to have patience. Acceptance that a child's development level and personality is not his choice. And I love how she put this, right? We need to accept that the child as they are and at any given moment. We have to avoid thinking why they can't do something or why they don't understand. Also, each child's developmental level and his personality is not his choice, right? Patience helps us be calm and consistent. Losing patience creates a hurriedness in the child that is not good. We need to make sure that the students know that we are dependable. And so if we are not patient, the child can sense that. Hence, we become a little less dependable for them and steady. Let's see. So next we have love, of course, broader than just, oh, I really love kids, right? We need to love just the whole nature of human beings and that whole process. It's deeper than just liking children, right? We need to accept them as they are. We see the child's shortcomings and we have to accept the child as they are, and we, have hope for the future. So I think typically when you're speaking with other Montessorians, there is just this sense of we have this appreciation for children, appreciation for life in general. And I don't think I've ever met a Montessorian that didn't really love, what they did. And we find our work very purposeful. And I think that's where that love, it's deeper than children. It's love of all humans and how we want to make the world a better place by directing our students. Okay. And then we have respect. So we must respect the child as a human being. How do we show them respect? By speaking with them eye to eye, getting on their level, not interrupting their conversations. I think oftentimes adults do this. Oh, their conversations aren't important. They're extremely important to them. They may be talking of something that we don't think is important, but it's important to them. So we have to make sure that we're not interrupting them when they're speaking. Just as we don't like when they interrupt us, right? Being consistent and setting limits is a sign of respect to the child. We also our prepared environment and the materials that we bring into our classroom is also showing them respect. I am bringing in, instead of paper plates, we're bringing in a beautiful china set for you to have snack on. That is out of respect for that child. They deserve that. Granted, it's from Goodwill, but it's beautiful, right? We want to show them beautiful things out of respect for them. And that's a really great aspect that I love about Montessori. Also, just the beautiful artwork we have. They deserve to know and to be exposed to all of these things. And again, I think that's part of that spiritual preparation and respect for the child. So again, ways that we show respect, shaking hands in the morning. Unfortunately, with COVID, we're not able to do this. That was a really important part of my day, maybe the most important part There's so much you can learn from that child from that first moment that they enter the classroom and you're shaking hands, looking in their eyes. How are you today? You can tell if they had a bad morning, just probably like you can with your coworkers or, adults, you can tell if they're super excited about something. And those short conversations are so important when they enter the classroom. And the past couple of years, I've noticed, these teachers, which is great, they have certain handshakes with their kids and with their students. And, in my eyes, I thought, well, Montessori, as Montessorians, we always did that. We always greeted our students individually when they came in. So some teachers are doing it differently. We certainly aren't shaking hands now. Some may be giving a little bow, some may be giving a little elbow tap. But that is showing respect for them. I respect you. And I really want to know how you are today. Also, that prepared environment is so important. And again, I talked about that, how we set up certain things in our classrooms to show respect for them. So we have scientific preparation. So this is sort of all about like our training, right? Scientific observation is key to a successful classroom. I talked about observation a little bit before. So when we are going through Montessori training, whether AMI or AMS, we have to observe a Montessori classroom for 2 weeks. And this isn't student teaching. This is different from student teaching. You literally sit in a chair for 8 hours and observe. And we observe like Montessori was, she was a doctor. We observe like scientists, right? We don't say, the child seems upset because they're crying. Child move towards teacher. Tears present, something like that. We try to observe without our personal prejudices or personal influence, if that makes sense, because that really is what true observation is about. So it's a skill that we learned in training on how to observe scientifically in a classroom. And again, we are taught to observe daily in our classroom. I rarely did it daily because again, when you have 30 students in front of you, it's really hard to sit and then to have them not, interrupt your observation time. But I have seen it done so well with some of my colleagues where they just take that 10 minutes and you're taking a lot of data in that 10 minutes. What part of the classroom is Susie in today? If we observe on a daily basis and we notice her, wow, she's in sensorial every time I observe. Okay, we need to push her to math. We need to push her to language. When I go in, I have an observation tool for the teachers that they can also use. So it's how many students are actively working, how many students are moving around the room, and that's okay if they are. How many math materials, how many sensorial materials, how many language materials do we have out? And if we see that consistently, gosh, they're really pulling out sensorial every time we observe as a whole. And, sometimes that happens. Sometimes I go into classes, one child will pull out a movable alphabet. They all want to do it, which is great. One child pulls out a chain. They all want to do chains, which is great. But if that's happening and we're observing it on a consistent basis, that gives us a key to adjust. So observation really is key and powerful. And again, I talked about that Montessori walkthrough list. So typically when I walk through, I again note how many students are in the classroom, what areas of the classroom are being worked on, who is really engaged in their work, who is not engaged, who's maybe disrupting. And then I leave a copy for them and that they're able to use that as well. Let's see. I also want to set it for my teachers next year. Observing in somebody else's classroom is also very powerful. So next year, we are going to set up a time that I hopefully would go into a classroom or an in-house sub or a substitute to allow that teacher to observe in another classroom for 20, 30 minutes. And we even talked about lower L going into primary going into upper L. And I think that's going to be very important for us to see, others' perspectives. Plus, you learn so much. Practical life is different in every classroom. And my teachers, a lot of them eat lunch together, and that's sort of where they do their, collaborating. But I think it's going to be very important for them to observe each other just to see how their classroom moves. All right, and then we have theory and practice. So as Montessori teachers, we obviously need to understand and practice the theory of Montessori's approach to education. It is very different from traditional. I was in training with a few traditional teachers who were burnt out, and they said, I want to do this, but I just need something different. And so really understanding the theory and approach to education is important. And that's why I would never hire, I could not hire, a teacher who was not Montessori trained. We just have a different train of thought. Some schools may say they're, a Montessori school, or we use the Montessori approach. Nope, if you don't have Montessori trained teachers, you are not a Montessori school, in my mind. And so we do have AMI and AMS, and those trainings are a little different, but it's good to have a mix because then teachers can sort of pass their ideas around.
So just right there, Lisa, my question, for our teachers, are they all trained in the same style and background of Montessori? And which one do we do, if they are or if they aren't? Can you give us a breakdown of who's who, like who's the AMS and who's not, or like?
So Miss Belts and I from primary are AMI trained. Everyone else is AMS trained. So me, Becker, Smith, and Dundor, they are AMS trained. Lower elementary, Miss Giannis, our new teacher, is AMS. I believe Miss Baker's AMI. I know Palin and Current are both AMI as well. So it's kind of the opposite. Primary, we're sort of heavy on AMS. Lower elementary, we're heavy on AMI trained. Again, it doesn't make a huge difference. AMS has a lot more like extensions. I do know sometimes AMI people can tend to look their nose down at AMS people. Ours is a bit more intense training. We have to type our own albums, and I heard in AMS that they can just sort of put their, buy their albums and put them together. But that's part of that whole Montessori, like learning through lecture and stuff and typing them yourself. But really, I think it's good to have a good mix of teachers. Now, the school where I came from, we were AMI certified, which means we could only hire 80% of our teaching staff had to be AMI. And so that can limit, but it also comes with a certain, to say we are AMI certified is a sense of pride. I think we were the only AMI certified MPS school at the time. But again, sometimes you will hear schools saying, "Oh, we do the Montessori approach." Yet, no, not unless you have that AMI or AMS certification. I am hearing now that some schools are doing online. So as you see in this slide, part of that is spending time with the materials. Like, you have to have your hands as a teacher on these materials to really understand it. There are times when I can go in the classroom now and I want to touch the materials, right? Because that's how we were trained. So I don't know about these online. I don't really agree with them, but I can't say they're horrible. We are in desperate need of Montessori teachers. So anyway, spending time with the materials. Oftentimes in the morning, you see the teachers in there laying materials out or adjusting their shelves. That's really part of the scientific preparation of a teacher. Practicing lessons. I mean, I would be in Goodwill buying trays and pitchers, and I would put it down. I would pick it up. Is it heavy? Would it be too heavy for a 3-year-old? Would I fit beans in here? Water? People probably thought I was cuckoo. Just kind of picking stuff up, and that's all part of the process, right? That's all part of our preparation. practicing those lessons. Also knowing, do we have space and do we have enough time for lessons? I have gotten in this situation many times. I'm going to start this grand lesson. Oh my gosh, we have FIAD in 20 minutes and our lesson should not be interrupted, right? So really thinking about that and planning out your day. Is there space? Are we teaching the 1,000 chain? And if we are, do we have enough room for that? Oftentimes that 1,000 chain has to be in the hallway. Do we have supervision for that? Can it be in the classroom? Oftentimes I would have my 5s do the 1,000 change in the classroom in the afternoon, and it was a challenge for them. Let's see if we can get it done. If not, the 3s and 4s, would be coming in the next day, and which is crime. They know how to walk around a space, but all of that is part of the scientific preparation. And again, just practice with the materials. I would say before we took our exams, we were practicing with materials for a whole month in our training. Really, really super important for us to do, even now. Okay. So then we have professional characteristics, emotional stability. And I don't know why I always chuckle, because we're not always emotionally stable. I mean, I suppose we should be, but stuff happens in our personal lives. And she said, try to be consistent no matter what you have going on. Our students pick up on that, whether they're 3 or whether they're 12, right? We try to be consistent, objective, and focused. And that really comes with taking care of ourselves. That's been really hard this year for some of our teachers, and it's, a lot are having trouble sleeping. And we talk a lot about, we've always done yoga. We've sort of always done mindfulness in a Montessori classroom, but taking care of yourself is so important, right? Because when your gas tank is empty, you can't give to anyone else, nor your student. So professional appearance. I remember being in training and, in some of her works, Montessori talked about, the directress should be beautiful, right? And it's like, okay, well, not, okay. But she meant, you should be presentable. You should show respect for yourself so that your students can also show respect for you. It's, also we have to be aware, rarely would you see a primary teacher wearing a skirt, because we're on the ground all the time. And, if you're wearing a skirt, you probably can't give lessons on the floor that day. So of course you have to be aware, how do you move freely and comfortably in your classroom with what you're wearing? And wearing slippers or our inside shoes is a big part. I have slippers now to this day. I got in trouble when I was with a traditional, I started here in a traditional school and I had my slippers, and somebody was like, why does she have slippers? I'm like, gosh, I was so used to it. I was just, because it's comfortable, so that is part of our professional characteristics. There's our professional appearance. Now, slippers always don't look professional, but they do help us move freely and comfortably. So we also want relationships with colleagues are so important, right? That contributes to the school's success. Professional development and Montessori memberships are important to have. Getting papers like Montessori Public and just reading the recent research on Montessori is very important, keeping up to date. I hold professional development very highly. I think I have learned a lot from PD, and teachers certainly should be doing that this year. Unfortunately, a lot of I had one teacher go to a conference, and I tried to give a robust part of my budget to PD so that teachers, so that's available for them to grow. Also, professional development with parents is obviously important. You are a collaborator with parents, exposing parents to the classroom and Montessori theory. And I do think we do a good job with that, with parent education nights and these Montessori mornings, and just simple conversations with parents at conferences, sort of exposing them to the Montessori method. This is just a picture of a conference that I and some teachers were at. I think it was my first year. It was the Wisconsin Montessori Society Conference. Okay. And that is what I have. Does anybody have any questions, comments on the role of the teacher or adult?
I guess I would have a little bit of follow-up on the professional development with parents and collaborators with parents. I think that's obviously why we do the parent ed night, but is there other aspects of that? Because that doesn't really feel like it's collaborative. It just feels like it's educational. So is there something that is more collaborative that we could work on? Because it seems like if that's a professional characteristic, we should probably do something else too.
Yeah, I mean, let's see. What would we do to collaborate with parents? I mean, that could just be ways to be more Montessori-ish at home. You know what I mean? Like showing them what we do in the classroom and how you could follow up at home. We certainly don't recommend parents getting Montessori materials because those have to be shown in a certain way, but how you could follow up at home. I think maybe that's what she was speaking of with collaboration.
So I was thinking more of maybe we could do something more robust with the attributes that we bring out with what are they called? The traits. What are the virtues? The virtues.
Virtues.
The virtues.
Sure.
Yes. So I don't know if that seems like a good transitional piece that we could be collaborative on, because I think it's something we could be doing in the homes that is tied or linked to what the directors are doing in their classrooms.
Sure. So how would that look instead of us just saying, hey, these are our virtues for the month? Like, what would you envision, Carmen? Like,
if there were like, I don't necessarily want to say like a checklist, but really I want to say a checklist of like potential ways or tracking what virtues are being used and how they're being used at home, and some ideas for us as parents as to how we could instill those virtues in our children and then tie it to the classroom lessons that they're having. Like, so something like that. So like it comes full circle. So like if we know this month is dedicated to this virtue, these are the lessons they're getting in class, but here's some things we could do in the neighborhood, in our communities, that we as parents could like reinvest in those things with our kids. It would be helpful, I think. And it would be a way we would be collaborating in and out of the classroom.
I like that. And I can bring that up at our next community outreach. I think that's where we decide our virtues.
What virtue are we on right now? Because I didn't see that in the newsletter. I know you usually put it,
I put it in the monthly. Yeah. So we are on caring because we tied that into the Humane Society donations that Laura L is doing. And we also had determination for Women's History Month.
Okay.
Yeah. And I do. Yeah, no, that's great because we could share literature, right? That ties in with those things. Because I know our counselor, Miss Pam, always asks me, what's the virtue? Because she wants, when she has group, she wants to make sure she's touching on those. So yeah, those certainly are ways that we can collaborate with parents with the virtue. I love that virtues program. It's just, sometimes I read them and I'm like, oh, but I think it's a really great program for us instead of doing like a PBIS, because we're not into treasure chests and stickers and all of that. I think this is just a great way. And we get it before, right? Why should we be respectful? And this is an example, and this is why we do this instead of talking to the student who is disrespectful, right? So yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good idea. That is something we can do certainly more robustly is, I like the idea of literature or determination, find somebody in your family that is, exemplifies determination, something like that. So yeah, good. Anything else? No? Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.